and all that stuff? here, so I will call the July 11th meeting of the LaGrange County Redevelopment Commission to order. The minutes from the prior meeting were distributed. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to those? Or a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any old business, new
Well,
business?
No party in here.
First item we have, we had helped fund a utility study for the South Milford area that the EDC commissioned and had Jones Petrie do that, and they are here to present that today. So if you're ready, I'll have you go ahead and take the floor for that.
Thanks for taking a little time in your agenda. I'll try to be brief. First of all, I want to tell you, we appreciate the ability to work with the Redevelopment Commission on this. The study and the draft, or the information that we've accumulated so far is in draft form, and it will remain in draft form until you say you're good with it. I'll give you little update on the budget. If you remember, our professional services contract totaled $10,000. I checked before I came over here today. We're at about $7,500. So we have some room left to polish this off, and I have some ideas that I might throw out to you today. We don't, as far as I'm concerned, other than a briefing memo, which would go over the top of this draft report, we're there. So, I don't think I don't need to go over the study area with you or the purpose of this, and I understand it, and I'm sure you do better than I do, or the history of this area, other than to say it's a long and storied history in the South Milford area. Years ago, I think it's been over 20 years ago, we worked with the Regional Sewage District to install sewer in that area, along with the lakes surrounding that area. So that was a good thing, a good environmental project, probably helped a little bit in economic development. Land use cover in the area is almost entirely the area of the study area, which is 700 on the north, 800 on the south, 1,200 on the east, and 550 on the west is almost entirely ag, other than the little community of South Milford. And doesn't surprise you there. We gave you some percentages on land cover just because that's what we would do in a study like this. We did take a good look at soils, and to be honest with you, none of this surprised me. And it probably is pretty apparent to you, even though this area is all ag, pretty much all ag. The soils and the setting does, if it were to convert to business or industrial, it's pretty attractive relative to soil conditions. It would be areas that, like in some of our developed areas, like in Elkhart County and other areas in LaGrange County, if you had this kind of dirt, you'd be in, and kind of very similar to what we see on State Route 19 North, actually, or State Route 9 North. So
what differentiates that?
It is, I'll tell you the way I look at it. If I drive by an open farm fields in corn or beans and there's an irrigator there, I'm saying I can develop on that. Because it typically is telling you that water table is probably not going to be an issue, at least immediate issue. It's going to tell you that the soil material is droughty and needs support from irrigation to grow good crops. That's usually means that it's going to be good for constructing buildings with shallow foundations and, handling stormwater and all those kind of things. So when we start to run out of that kind of land, it becomes a concern. So fortunately in LaGrange County, especially in this area and some other areas, you're still in good shape. So and there are multiple fields out here that have irrigators in them. And so we don't have any problem from a development standpoint. We don't have any problem saying there's some good ground out here if you can find users for it. Probably the bigger struggle is going to be support utilities, because it is very rural. For instance, NIPSCO Gas they do have distribution in the town of South Milford. It's domestic demand. There are a couple of businesses in there that probably put a little bit higher demand on the local distribution system that they have, but they really don't have high capacity or high pressure gas mains that go through North or South Milford. They're on the edges. If you look at the let's see, this second map, it's kind of hard to see. I might want to change the colors in the final draft, but the high pressure pipelines actually are to the west of the service area or the study area on the west, and then are on the very edge of the service area on the east. Everything else is going to be more domestic demand sized pipeline. And now the way NIPSCO will answer, and the way they answered us when we talked to them, was we got to know what you want to do. And before we can really react to it, we need to know. And of course, a lot of that's based on, the consumer, what they're going to consume, what they're going to need the gas for, when they're going to need it, because obviously that's a long-term planning activity. But they're ready to talk about it, so we were able to engage with them at least at that level. I think from a domestic standpoint, South Milford is doing fine with a local gas service. I would assume that for some industry, there's the ability to serve. But again, we'd want to look at that demand. Like if we had somebody that was coming in and taking a quarter section of ground and looking at, 3 or 4 buildings, we'd want to know what that demand is and give NIPSCO plenty of time to react to it. So, and that's not unusual, really, to be honest with you, everywhere. We're having that problem everywhere, even in areas that are, have a lot of industry. That we're having demand issues across the northern tier of the state right now with gas and power. So, but anyway, on the electric side, the power side, again, there's a adequate distribution for the users that exist there now, and most of that is in the corridor of 700 South, and then a smattering of distribution lines where they are needed elsewhere. And obviously they can provide 3-phase power to the agricultural user, which means in a lot of cases, if we were going to support like new utility infrastructure, we could probably have adequate power for that. But again, and they, so they don't have any that we were able to identify anything like as large as 138 kV or even 345. There's really not any of that in that area. And it takes a while to get it there. So if we had a significant consumer, we'd want to give them plenty of time to react to that. And, but they also tell you, we don't care who it is. If you have a prospect, just come and talk to us, because we might be able to react to it within the timeline of a project. So, but it probably would be if the Redevelopment Commission's goal is to activate this area down here, it probably would be smart to, convene a planning session with REMC, NIPSCO Gas and NIPSCO Power probably earlier than later, and trying to get them. And I can give you a couple of ideas as to how we've approached it in other communities where we start that dialogue early and takes quite a while to get there. For instance, Bristol, Indiana, which is a community we take care of, they started to have a boom, a dramatic uptick in industrial growth. And that started about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe even 9 years ago. And at the time, it didn't take long for the town to take NIPSCO right to the edge of what they were able to do. And they're 100% in NIPSCO territorial service area, and of course, NIPSCO Gas. NIPSCO Gas, I guess, was a little easier to overcome, but still had a problem. And just recently, if you drive through Bristol now, right now they call it the corn dog capital of the world. But when these power lines installations are done, I think they could probably also say they're going to be the power pole capital of the world, because these are monster steel, rust and, the rusty kind that, that are protected by rust, taller than all get out. And some people are complaining about it, but those of us that know the need, it's like about time, so. But anyway, they would be absolutely, willing to sit down and talk, as you know. The town of North Milford is covered by wastewater. There is capacity in the wastewater system there that is owned by the regional sewage district. It's not a lot of capacity, but typically what we're seeing, and this has been important in planning, and it's taken a while for engineers and even communities to kind of get a grip on this. But years ago, and it hadn't been that long ago, when we said, well, we're going to do an industrial park, and so we need to estimate demand for public utilities right from the get-go, so we make sure we're planning adequately. And we used to use numbers for manufacturing that are so overstated today that it's ridiculous. What we built, 12 years ago, thinking that we were going to have stuff like 2,000 gallons a day per acre. It's not anywhere close to that. It's like a tenth of that. And what's happened in the industries, especially the dry industries that we see, kind of concentrating on this part of the state, is that the advancement of water conservation devices, the criteria that they place on manufacturing processes for recycling, all those things have dramatically affected what we have to plan for. So, we are down to unbelievable, from 2,000 gallons a day per acre, maybe 12 or 13 years ago, to 200 gallons an acre today for dry industry. Now, if you had a food processor, or a produce producer that needed a lot of water, even an egg packaging company, that's a different thing. If, like for instance, if Miller Poultry were to move down to south, we'd want to make sure that they got all the water they needed and all the wastewater they needed. But right now for dry industry, I wouldn't have any qualms saying you probably could support, maybe a quarter section of fully developed dry industry with what's available in the sewer down there right now, with very little need to reinvest in some of that network, at least up front. Over time, yeah, we'd have to build it back in, especially if that development takes hold and you start seeing a lot of demand. So, from a stormwater standpoint, on the graphic for stormwater, oh, by the way, there is a graphic for sewer, shows the network that's owned by the district. The next two diagrams provide some information on the county legal drain and drain tiles. Some of these tiles are, we don't really know the size of them completely. So what we would be recommending out here, and of course the county drainage board and the county surveyor would want us to analyze that for every development project. We would typically, in a development scenario, have to provide a stormwater management plan anyway. So whether these drain tiles or these county drains can be used would have to be studied. And they're currently doing what they need. If we're going to hit them with a whole lot of hard surface or roof water, then it's another matter. So, and in a lot of the planning today, really, that's the most impactful thing that we're seeing is management of stormwater, because people don't, regulatory agencies locally and at the state and federal level are watching that very closely. So very, very critical point. We think the area, though, based on soil types and the fact that most of that material is fairly droughty, there's a lot of that management can happen right on the development site. So
What's the difference between a county drain tile and a legal drain?
Well, legal drain, we typically characterize that as an open ditch. And that open ditch comes with certain requirements for setbacks and in some cases, depending on whether, I don't know whether LaGrange County manages those features with a CUME fund or whether they're assessed. Are they assessed? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that actually even becomes more sensitive because people have been, paying to take care of these drains forever. And if you come in with a, 500,000 square foot building and you pop it in the middle and say, we'd like to go into that drain, there's going to be somebody that'll have something to say about it. But that's pretty much typical managing practice and design practice. You have to, basically what the goal would be to, offset the developed condition and allow for the release of the pre-developed condition. So, but the area is got quite a few features. So, down to water supply, because there's no municipal water system out in the area. If you were to have a significant user, whether it didn't really matter what they were using it for, in today's world, in the state of Indiana, running a what's called a semi-public transient water supply is very complicated. You basically have to do everything that a municipality has to do to run a water system if you're going to provide drinking water to your employees. That's one of the, even if you're a convenience store, you actually have to have, if you're pulling that water out of a water well, you actually have to have a certified, qualified water operator licensed by the state to oversee the operation of that well. So, but the good thing about this, there's several around. There's a lot of guys that have the ability, a lot of guys that work for municipalities kind of moonlight and do that. And then there are firms that do it professionally. So if you were to have a prospect that came in and wanted a quarter section of development ground, what we found is, although there wasn't a real densified number of high withdrawal wells, there were 5, I think we listed here on page, don't have any page numbers on this. So I guess that's a correction on the draft report. But under water supply in section 2.5, we found 4 what the DNR and IDEM would characterize as high capacity wells. But, and by the way, this one down here, it's listing its withdrawal at capable withdrawal at 300 gallons a minute, but it's showing a 2-inch diameter pipe. That's not right. That's got to be an 8. We'll change
That's a lot
that.
of pressure.
I just noticed that this morning. So anyway, and the largest one that's out there is 12-inch, and it's pulling 800 gallons. My guess is with the number of irrigation systems I saw out here, it's likely that we could probably do better than 800 gallons a minute. So at some point in time, typically if you had a big customer like that, that showed up, and it wouldn't be the responsibility of the Redevelopment Commission. It would be their development responsibility to do a hydrogeologic study and determine what they could pull out of the ground. And sometimes that goes as far as placing a test well. One of the good things is in this aquifer, these other wells already exist. So if they could go to the farmer off season and say, we'd like to borrow your well and do the testing we need on this aquifer. So that's a matter of like conducting basically what they do is stress the aquifer to its maximum and see how it recovers. And that way they can determine what size of well they could put in that aquifer and what the withdrawal rate would be. So not hard to do. And so if a developer showed up, again, I don't think I would recommend that the Redevelopment Commission sponsor that work. I'd say, we want you to do all the due diligence on you. If you need to, maybe we can put you in touch with these farmers, and you're going to have to wait till he's done using it. But when he's done using it, you could go out like in the fall, late fall, and do that analysis and know what the aquifer can provide. The good thing about the aquifer out in this area, I think what we'd find is it's pretty consistent. Going to be real consistent. So, and when our environmental guys were looking at this, that was the word that they were using. It's going to be a consistent, just about anywhere in the study area, you should be able to get good water. So the other thing too is if it ever came to pass that a municipal water system was needed, there's probably plenty of capacity in the aquifer to be able to provide it. So telecommunications, we know that there are several providers out there. South Milford itself is pretty well served by LinkTel. There are others that, and most of their backbone or their access is right along 500, so right through the heart of the study area. And they have different, what they call tail ends where they almost touch each other, but then they don't. And so they act, initially, it looks like they covered the entire width of the corridor on 500. So I don't know I don't really understand how the capacity of telecommunications works myself. I don't know, what kind of speeds and capacities you can get out of those. What they're currently doing is serving, pretty much domestic demand. What can they get out of that? I really don't know. It seems to me like lately, since sometime last year, it seems like we've been getting involved in more and more of these data center projects, and I never hear them say, well, we got to be close to the communications line. I never hear that. What I hear is we got to have power. That's what we're looking for, is power. It's all about power. So I really don't understand what their capacity needs are for something like that. But I would assume that because of the proliferation of, there's more than one provider in that corridor, that the typical dry industry business that would want to locate in LaGrange County in this area could probably be served.
There's about unlimited data capacity.
Yeah.
Once you run the fiber,
Yeah.
it just depends on which equipment you put on
Yeah.
the end of it.
That whole world is foreign to me. I don't quite get it, but that's okay.
You guys have fiber there.
Again, on the electrical side, I think we'll be okay. And again, we did find, I think there is one substation out there. It's located at the intersection of one of the roads. Let's see if I can find that. But again, with NIPSCO and REMC, I would say, about 3/4 of the area is in NIPSCO, and the other quarter, or maybe even a third, is in REMC. We've always found that REMC is easy to work with. They're pretty responsive. You can actually talk to somebody that can answer your question. And NIPSCO, you got to dig down through the, and wait for a call back. But, for the right prospect, they'll call you back. So we're still a little under budget. And so what we would do is give you a couple days to look at this. And if you have questions, maybe go through Sherry, or you can call me directly or email me directly. And then I'll either answer the questions, or we'll add some revisions to the report. And then we will polish that off with a briefing memo that's right on the face of the report. So when Sherry's talking to a prospect, she says, well, here's what our study said. So they don't have to go looking through the whole thing. And that'll be fairly brief. But we always like to have a briefing memo on the top of it. So the other thing that I would offer, and it's not for the purposes of trying to use up fee, by the way, but there's one thing that we've done in the past, and one of the things that we routinely do is, in support of especially the Economic Development Corporation, we have partnerships. And to be honest with you, I know I'm not a paying member of the LaGrange County EDC, but I am almost everywhere else.
We can fix that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we do a lot of business over here, so it might make sense. So, so as a matter of fact, I used to share a building with the Elkhart County EDC. And they still do today. They will call us up and say, well, we got a prospect interested in this site. Could you give us, just a report on that, telling us, maybe giving us some suitability recommendations, that kind of thing. And they don't pay for that. We just do it. And maybe we get some work out of it. Maybe we don't. But what we're really looking for is for the community to get something out of it. So, and again, we do that for no cost. So I wouldn't be planning on using up your fee for that. That would be something that I would do with Sherry ongoing. The thing that I have had some luck with here recently, and I don't know if I've told anybody this, or I think maybe I told Sherry this, is I'm the chairman of the Economic Development Corporation, your neighbor to the north in Michigan, in St. Joseph County. I've been doing that for, I don't know how long. I don't know how I got to be chairman and why they won't let me out of it, but I still enjoy it. So, but one of the things we've done up there, and one of the things we've done in some of our other small communities, we've encouraged them to begin some dialogue with some of the key property owners, not to do anything more than say, would you allow us, or would you be willing to allow us to put your property in soft inventory? And the only reason for that is to aid Sherry in her response. So if there's somebody that comes to LaGrange County and says, well, I'd like to build a business here in LaGrange County, at least she would have something in her back pocket where she could say, well, I know of a guy. And, so we actually have, discussed this with some of the communities we work with, and we've encouraged them to actually put a letter out, whether it comes from the chairman of the EDC or the Redevelopment Commission or from Sherry or whatever, and say, no pressure. You're in the agricultural business. We don't want to change that. All we're wanting to do is to know that if you would let us say this guy might talk, that's enough. That's all you have to have. And then if you've got 2 or 3 of those, what we could do is take our report and zero down a little bit on those. And like, okay, if we did have a prospect that was going to, and, maybe employ 300 people, what's the demand going to be on the utilities, and how do we react to that? And then try to get that little bit of the report done, that little bit of work done in advance. And again, that goes in Sherry's back pocket. And she said, well, we can get this quarter section because we can talk to this guy about this quarter section. He might be interested. And we already kind of have a feel as to what the development costs are going to be to serve the site. And so we've done that in a couple cases. And you wouldn't believe how difficult it is to get a farmer to answer a letter like that, because they are, yeah. It is so difficult, and trying to assure them we're not demanding that you're not hurting anyone's feelings if you say, don't talk to me ever about this again, but you never know unless you ask, and so we are working offline on that topic right now, up on North State Route 9 with a couple of people that we've been dealing with for years when we were doing the sewer project, just trying to get them to let us tell somebody that you might be interested. You don't have to give us a price. We don't care what the price is. That's not our business. But if you're willing, and there's some, just like here in South Milford, there's some great ground up there too. And but anyway, so that's my report for today, and I'm going to hold this in draft for a little while. I haven't sent an invoice yet, so I'm going to hold that back a little bit yet, and we'll see what happens. But I believe right now I can finish this project under budget if all I'm doing is completing this draft and putting a briefing memo over the top of it. So
I've got a question for you.
yes,
In this service area, you didn't list Noble County REMC.
I didn't know they were there.
Yeah, we got them to supply us with power when we put the terminal in down there.
Oh, really?
So they brought 3-phase down to
Oh,
be.
well, that's good to
700.
know. That's good to know.
I think they were able to service it because we were small enough that NIPSCO didn't want to bother with us.
Ah,
So they allowed Noble County to come across the line.
so is that the only customer that's served by Noble County REMC?
Well, see, we're on the Noble LaGrange County line.
Yeah.
So as far as I know, we're probably the only one on that side of the road, but I'm
Okay.
not sure.
Well, we'll call them and talk to them about it. I know NIPSCO's a little touchy on stuff like that.
Right.
And, they seem to be, we have, like one of the towns we take care of, a couple of towns we take care of have their own power company. Bremen is one. And they're constantly in an arm wrestling match with NIPSCO, as they're trying to annex. They want those new properties to be on their power system, even though they're buying the power from NIPSCO. But we can, we'll certainly give them a call and just so we can make sure we put that in there. But they're the ones that are going to know what kind of deal they made and what restrictions come with it. So it could be, well, we only agreed to that one customer. I don't know.
That's
But
typically how they look.
NIPSCO's having issues with production. That's the biggest issue they're having right now. We had a data center project going on in Elkhart County that was 100% in NIPSCO's territory, and it got all the zoning done, got everything was wrapped up relative to that, trying to finalize any kind of a deal or at least get hope of a deal from NIPSCO. And right at the tail end, they said, well, we're going to have to do a demand study and it's going to cost you $500,000. And that guy left town. He was mad because it took him a year to tell him that. So don't know why, but that's the way it worked out. So, but I know that is a tough business. That is very tough. So.
Jim, do you think down in that area, we should be specific to the terminal area like he's talking about? That property on the terminal? Be available?
I would give the okay for that. The other owners may have to.
We can have this conversation.
Well, we'll just talk to them and say, is that all you're willing to do? Because it's not impossible. I mean, if they want to push farther,
Yeah, 'cause
it's not impossible to do that deal.
Because they had to bring the 3-phase 3 miles to
Yeah.
get to us. So
Yeah.
they worked with us well. I was thankful to be able to work with the REMC rather than a NIPSCO.
Yeah, they didn't tell us that, but that's interesting. So we'll reach out to them and just see, again, it's not impossible to do those deals. I don't know how they get done. I have no clue, but I know it's not easy. So, but anyway, thanks for taking time with me. Appreciate it. I'll be in touch with you.
Thanks, Ken.
Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is for us to review and consider the annual spending plan. Kurt sent out a draft of that earlier this week or last week, I don't remember, for you guys to review. I think there may have been some minor tweaks to this final draft with some updated information from the auditor, but I think it's largely the same as what you guys seen. Does anybody have any questions, or Kurt, do you have any comments on it?
Just that, remember, this is one of those new laws that requires us to, for some reason, project what you might spend, for 2026. And you can't spend something unless it's in this annual spending plan. So what we do is we take the budget that Kathy has already done for 2026 and incorporate those numbers into it. If you have additional spending that would occur in 2026, we just have to amend the plan. So why we have to do this when we already have a fiscal plan and a capital improvement plan, beyond me, other than some legislator decided it was a good idea. So we have to upload this by December 1, and so we don't have to make a decision today. But it is kind of perfunctory, and it is kind of a, home way of looking at things. We just basically throw the numbers in that Kathy has budgeted and figure that you're not gonna spend more than you have budgeted, so. The big pullout is from the budget, she has $3,437,220 budgeted, but we pulled out the $817,000, which is a possible reimbursement for the Shipshawana sewer plant that you guys at least authorized. None of that money is currently being planned to be actually spent, but it's in the budget. So if we decide to do that, it's already taken care of. So
They've started that project out.
yes, they actually, last night, they issued a notice to proceed. And they got their $21 million. There's 3 different bonds, but last night they issued their notice to proceed and they're supposed to start construction. And what that looks like, excavation and mobilization on Monday. So they're rocking and rolling. And last night, just because it's relevant to what you're doing here, they passed the new food and beverage tax increase that they were able to get special legislation for to help offset the high rates that they're having to have their residents pay. So that should help to plus what you're committing to them as well.
Does this have to go to any type of public hearing or anything? Just
When you want to, as long as for December 1, you need it approved in some form, and then you get it to Kathy and she'll upload it to the gateway.
Okay.
We'll be in compliance. And that's all we have to do through the end of the year. So at that point, it's just whether or not you need a meeting.
You guys want to take action on this today or?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the annual spending plan for 2026.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we got a spending plan.
Thank you.
Just a brief update on the residential TIF. The update is I don't know any different on it. I think they're still working on in the background side. Thought we'd scheduled this meeting thinking they might be ready at this point with updated plans to do a TIF, but I haven't heard that they've got any progress on it, so we'll just wait on them. And if they get their ducks in a row, then we'll be ready to respond. So,
It's not a dead deal. It's just not a,
last I talked to them, they were planning on just starting, because they were trying to rush to break ground this year and get things started. Now it's like, well, we'll just wait till next year because everything's getting out of the
It
way.
was gonna be 3 phases and now it's 2.
Yeah.
And so they're pre-working on that.
I don't think they've resubmitted an updated plan or anything to anybody. So. Is there any other business?
On the residential TIF, the expense of setting that up, any idea what that would run?
I know for sure it'll be a lot. You've got to have, you have to have and then a lot of it depends on whether the developer is willing to pay it for it or not. And that's part of the negotiations that you all have to work through with the developer and come up with a development plan. There's got to be a residential plan as well. There have to be maps and all those things drawn. Fiscal plan has to be drawn, much more detailed than this with your financial advisor. And then we've got the legal part of it. So, I mean, if I had to guess, it's, tens of thousands, like probably not hundreds, but definitely a fair amount. And a lot of times, I'm not trying to obligate you or the commissioner, but a lot of times the county, and not in this case, we've never done one here, but in other places, will either decide to pay for that up front, but only after they have a development agreement signed with the developer. Or the developer will pay for it and finance it up front. So that's something you can negotiate.
So any clue what kind of an income would come into the TIF
Yes.
regarding that?
We did a very, very, very rough calculation. I mean, I don't know that I remember, I know I didn't bring it with me because I apologize, but I feel like it was based on the number of houses that we got and the idea that they were 350,000 or so apiece. We thought over the 20 years, which is what the life of the bond would be, you could finance about $1.7 million of development costs. But they'd have to buy the lot because nobody's going to buy it.
Yeah.
Because there's no history. I think that was the number.
I think that was, yeah, that sounds familiar. It's going to be a little smaller now because it's about
Is it?
2/3 of the size. They only do it.
Just kind of,
I mean, the phase 3 is very much up in the air as to whether they would do that. So the first 2 phases is all they would want to TIF, which would be about 100 instead of 150 homes. So you'd be at 1.2 or a million. Yes.
And in other areas, usually what happens is the developer says, we'll buy the bond, we'll give you the money, you guys, then basically, if there's enough increment to capture, you pay it back that way. If there's not, it doesn't get paid back. It's the upfront costs that are the kicker.
'Cause Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when we were talking to him, we based you, or you think you were telling him that basically we would get ours paid back and then what's left over, because we don't have the money to pay for it. And so we would have to pay ourselves back first. I think that's how we remember the conversation
Yeah,
going.
yeah. And then further, I think Kurt discovered later on, or that they could also, if they follow certain rules for how they bid out the work, then they can get reimbursed from the TIF directly. So they don't have to go, we don't have to go through the bonding process. They just pay for it.
Yep.
And as we get money in, if they follow procedure, we just reimburse them out of the TIF.
Yeah, that's true. There's really 2 ways. One, finance it up front with them buying the bond, or doing it through a reimbursement. The reimbursement requires them to comply with public works statutes, public bidding statutes. It's got to be a local public improvement. You have to, basically transfer it to the county at some point. So, and that's where some of the dilemma is, because private developers, they're not familiar with doing the public works projects, and so a lot of times they don't pay close attention to those rules, and then we're not able to reimburse them. Go through all that. Yeah, but that is another way: reimburse on the back end or front it through a bond that they buy.
Okay, any other items? All right, I don't think we have anything else on the agenda, and no further meetings this year unless something comes up. We'll call one, but right now we don't have any pending business, so it may be a little while before we meet again. So
Is Terry gonna wanna do something with the sewer project, and come back and do something else with that before the end of the year?
I think what Kathy, I feel like she reached out to Okra and found that there wasn't any need for any more monies to be reimbursed. Am I right about that?
On the,
you were talking about ship sheet.
I was talking about the
Oh,
Shipshawana
I'm
sewer
sorry. I'm
project.
sorry. I'm in county.
No, Shipshawana sewer project,
Great question.
because he might,
Yeah, I would think if they are, when they're ready, yes, they would reach out and have them.
I would think before, since they just got everything in place, that would want to happen before the end of the year.
So we might need something for that. So yeah, if we need something, we'll email and find a date that works for the majority. So, all right, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
In case we don't. Don't forget to turn in your applications before the end of the year. The commissioners and council can read